All right, guys. So the Trump regime is not stopping. They're continuing to put up a giant middle finger in all of our faces and trying to impress upon us that literally nothing matters and never will again. So as More Perfect Union points out here, breaking, the Trump EPA is about to revoke the scientific finding that underpins all climate regulation. The agency is walking back the conclusion that greenhouse gases pose a risk to public health. This will open the door to deregulation, a win for the fossil fuel industry. Okay, guys, not only is this a war on science, this is a war on truth. This is a war on facts. This is a war on things that are just known. You can't, in the same way, this is what I call right-wing postmodernism. They don't care about the truth. They care about their truth. They care about, their narrative truth that they can make up. Because they're literally making the government now lie officially and go, actually, there's no downsides of greenhouse gas emissions, bro. There's no risk to the public over extensive greenhouse gas emissions when we already know there are many risks to greenhouse gas emissions, right? We already know that's what leads to climate change. Climate change is what leads to water shortages. Climate change is what leads to drought and famine. Climate change is what leads to sea level rise. Climate change is what's going to lead to mass refugee crises. Okay? But it's literally shove your head in the sand and lie, all so ExxonMobil can make an extra fucking 2% profit. I mean, that's what it is. That's exactly what this is, bro. It is just astonishing. It is astonishing how low this regime is willing to go. Let me give you some more here. So they say, this action will only lead to more of this pollution, and that will lead to higher costs and real harms for American families. The evidence and the lived experience of so many Americans tell us that our health will suffer. So let me give you a little bit from, this is the Environmental Defense Fund. Trump EPA decision to overturn endangerment finding is endangering all of us. So they say, new reports indicate that the EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin is about to finalize a rule that stops protecting the American people from the pollution that's causing worse storms, floods, and skyrocketing insurance costs. The unlawful, year-long effort by the political leadership at the EPA rejects the overwhelming evidence that climate pollution threatens everyone's health and safety. This action will only lead to more of this pollution, and that will lead to higher costs and real harm for American families. The evidence and the lived experience of so many Americans tell us that our health will suffer, property values will decline, and flood and fire insurance premiums will increase if they're still available at all in some disaster-prone parts of the country. Crop yields and water supplies will be threatened. Many have already lost loved ones and seen homes and businesses destroyed because of climate disasters that have cost the U.S. more than $3 trillion since 1980. That's crazy, bro. $3 trillion DZACs since 1980. And they're only going to intensify with worse pollution. Quote, this is the last thing American families need when electric bills have never been so expensive. And by the way, why are they so expensive? Because Trump sucks off the AI oligarchs and is letting them build data centers all over the motherfucking place. And that increases your payment for your electric bill. They pawn that cost off to you. Quote, the Supreme Court ruled in 2007 that the Environmental Protection Agency has the responsibility and authority to limit climate pollution, and the endangerment finding has been essential to the progress we've all benefited from ever since. It's led to clean vehicle standards for automakers that are giving drivers more choices that save them money while limiting the pollution that leads to costly trips to the emergency room and sick days at work and school. It's sparking billions of dollars in investment and innovation and new technologies that help ensure America's manufacturers are globally competitive and that don't come with a long list of health side effects. But this decision is now endangering all of it and all of us. We need to know the truth about the challenges we face, not fake science. We need investment in our communities to promote health, support families, lower costs, and power the economy. The EDF will challenge this decision in court where evidence matters and keep working with everyone who wants to build a better, safer, and more prosperous future. So I need you to understand what's happening here. Just the entire concept of even having an EPA, that is under assault. That is under attack. The entire concept of having an EPA. They're saying, Trump is saying, we're going to try to make it so the Environmental Protection Agency is no longer allowed to do environmental protection. Can't regulate greenhouse gas emissions, can't regulate pollution. And for the record, this is how we get to the place where already under Trump, he deregulated deli meat. Well, 9 people were killed because he deregulated deli meat, and 57 people were hospitalized. They got rid of the routine food safety inspections. Okay, well, more people got sick as a result of that. In fact, he rolled back 112 environmental protections. He deregulated chemicals and water and air. Okay? They mass fired nuclear safety officials and had to beg for one of them to come back because they didn't realize that they needed the person. And this is on top of cutting medical research, cutting pediatric cancer research, cutting all the science budget like crazy, the brain drain that we're now experiencing. Make no mistake about it. This is a war that has been declared on American science. It's a war that's been declared on your health and your safety. They're saying we don't want the government to regulate big business. We don't want the government to check corporate pollution. We don't want the government to even have the ability to come up with a plan to fight back against climate change. We want to let the oil robber barons in the Epstein class, after they get done raping children, we want to allow them to dump shit into the river to the point where it's so polluted you can light that bitch on fire. Okay? This is actually what's happening right now. This is actually what they're arguing for. So it's not good. It's not good. And then add on top of this, the Chevron decision, which further undermined the administrative state, basically made it so that there's a war waged by Trump on the entire administrative state. And the thing that's terrifying is this. I don't think many people know or care much about this because it's not as sexy and flashy a headline when you say, oh, EPA changes regulation, to not regulate climate change. It doesn't immediately pop, right? But you will for shit sure recognize the difference in your life when the EPA is no longer allowed to do environmental regulation, in the same way that, people in California talk about it all the time, how there used to be smog and you couldn't see the mountains. Then they did some environmental cleanup and regulation, and then you could see the fucking mountains in Los Angeles, and they're like, oh shit, I didn't even know there was a mountain there. And it's, yeah, because you take good government for granted. You know what I'm saying? Like, when it's there and doing the job, it's not like you're going to thank them because things are just, they are how they should be, right? But when they're gone, then you're fucked, right? And you're going to see it a lot more lately. Didn't we cover a story where, I believe it was the Supreme Court slapped down some regulation on water, and so now, like, sewage water is going to be a much more common occurrence, and they're like, the government can't step in to, like, fix the sewage water. This is where we're at, bro. This is what has happened under the Trump regime. And people are just, I think they're being a little too lenient and a little too relaxed, and they're not understanding that this is a 5-alarm fire. And the best example of this, too, is probably RFK with what he's doing with Health and Human Services. This is literally the last man on earth who should be in control of American science. But he is. This is a guy who believes nicotine is good for you. He drinks methylene blue. He thinks that's good for you. It's some, like, Alex Jones level type shit where they got these conspiracies about how it fixes your mitochondria, so you got to drink methylene blue. It literally makes your tongue blue, and it permanently makes your brain blue to the point where when they pass away, if you were to do an autopsy, their brain would be totally dyed blue. This is who these people are. He takes testosterone. He takes human growth hormone. He's on a peptide that makes his skin darker. He eats roadkill. He had a literal brain worm from eating roadkill, and he has the nerve to lecture Americans about how to eat properly. There was that commercial during the Super Bowl with Mike Tyson talking about eating properly, and RFK tweeted some shit. It's like, bro, you are the last one to say this shit, okay? You limited access to the COVID vaccine. You put vaccine skeptics on the advisory panel. You fired the CDC director after a fucking month because they were standing up to you with your junk science. They fired over 1,000 people at the Epidemic Intelligence Service, making it more likely we're going to have another pandemic and not be able to respond to it appropriately. We ended support for the global vaccine program. RFK did that. Canceled the flu vaccine campaign. He tries to link antidepressants to violence, which is a fucking lie. He laid off thousands of workers at HHS. They were releasing AI-generated MAHA reports, which were full of total bunk, complete BS, nonsense, okay? And then, of course, he told Bernie Sanders, even though he's Mr. Health, right? Bernie says, hey, is healthcare a human right? He goes, I don't know about that, no. This country's been taken over by charlatans and grifters and corporate goons and billionaires, okay? It's the fascists, it's the warmongers, it's the billionaires who've taken over. It's the Epstein class. The Epstein class has taken over. And now here we are. They're even trying to gaslight you to the point where they say, oh no, climate change is not even an issue. Like, don't even worry about that. That's not a thing. It's not a thing. You don't have to worry about it. And we're not even going to allow the government to regulate. Even if it were a thing, we're not going to allow the government to do the proper regulations to protect you from the downsides of it. So I'm telling you now, they get their way and they fall through, there's going to be another mass refugee crisis when certain places are too hot to live and they flee to cooler places. There's going to be a refugee crisis. There's going to be wars over water. That's coming. That's coming. There's going to be famine. Okay? So some of the best cities are going to be underwater because they're at sea level and they're going to flood. Okay? It's going to be trillions of dollars in cleanup from the extensive damage from the new severe storms as a result of climate change. And they're just going to shove their head in the sand even more so that ExxonMobil can make another 2% in profit. Congratulations.
Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.